Guest is with us, Doug Elwell. As I told you, I've read off the bio, and now he's here to join us. So, Doug, welcome to Late Night in the Midlands.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Your website, very interesting stuff. I know you've got The Riddle of the Sphinx. You've also got a book on Planet X. Can you tell us a little bit? Tell us the books you've got, what you've written, and maybe give us a little insight on them.
Well, the two most recent books I've written are called Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age, and The Riddle of the Sphinx. Two separate books written about a year and a half apart. The first one, Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age, is about my theory that the star that preceded the birth of Jesus Christ was actually Planet X, and that this same planet will return sometime in our probably near future to herald his second coming, as Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24, I believe it's 17. His second coming would be preceded by a heavenly sign in the heavens. My theory is that they are both the same sign, Planet X, returning in a roughly 2,000-year orbit. The second book, The Riddle of the Sphinx, talks about the hidden secret underneath the Sphinx that some people believe is hidden in a mysterious hall of records. And my theories about what it might be, possibly ancient technology from before the flood, which in the wrong hands could be quite dangerous.
Right. Very interesting. All right. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the whole Planet X thing tonight and get into the Sphinx. And, and just touching on the technology really quick, some would say that the elite now have gotten their hands on some of that ancient technology. Some believe it's being used.
Yes, if they may have been searching for it in Iraq. Some people think some ancient technology was buried around there. Others believe that these alien beings are actually the fallen angels who are giving us this technology and kind of reincorporating it into our society, just as they had possibly in the world before the flood. It says in the book of Enoch that the fallen angels came down from heaven to earth and gave man gifts of technology, arts and literature, writing, science, as we understand it, and taught men how to create shields and work metal, shields and armor and swords and work metal and a variety of other what we would call technologies. And the theory based on that is, in some circles, is the world before the flood actually achieved a technological, because of their help from these heavenly beings that came down to earth, had achieved a level of sophistication equal to or possibly greater than our own in modern day. And some people believe the reason we've achieved technology in our time is because these same fallen angels, these aliens or whatever you want to call them, have come down again and started giving us technology again. And this is the reason, one of the major reasons, we're enjoying a technological renaissance, because we've been given help by these spirit beings.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with how some of these ancient civilizations were able to be so accurate with the planets and the events that come in space. You just wonder, I mean, there's been no signs of telescopes and things like that that were ever found, if I'm right about this. So, you would think that information had to have been passed on to them.
It must have been. You can't, for example, Egypt didn't have a period of growth of sophistication of sciences and arts. They just kind of appeared out of nowhere with a complete package of language and writing and mathematics. There was no period of development from primitive math to sophisticated math. They just appeared out of nowhere in the archaeological record. And the same with the Sumerians, as if they have been specifically raised and taught to be a race of beings that had these abilities to serve some sort of a purpose. The theory of some, including myself, is that they're specifically bred and trained to serve these fallen beings as sort of their servants. And these heavenly beings are the gods of these various peoples, like Re and Horus and Osiris, are actually fallen angels that came down and taught them technology to the Egyptians, much of which technology was lost, but some of which may be understood if you properly interpret their mythology as not magic, but technology.
Mm-hmm. Now, getting back to Planet X, tell me a little bit about your motivation for writing the book on Planet X. And, I've talked to several people in the past who have done work on this, and it seems like everybody's pretty close to the same idea, but not everybody believes the same things, as far as where it is, when it was here last, and how often it comes around.
What motivated me was I was curious to see if Jesus was returning, will it be the sign of his coming and the end of the age, just like it says in Matthew 24. And Jesus actually goes into a long explanation of everything that will happen in order in the tribulation period, which is typically defined by Christians as the last 7 years of this current age prior to Christ's return. And he describes in detail all these events that are parallel exactly with the events described in the book of Revelation. And at the peak of these events, these tribulation events, there appears a sign in the heavens which will precede Jesus' second coming, after which he returns with his angels and does battle with the dragon and his angels, so forth. The fallen angels that gave mankind technology. And so my motivation is I figure if you can figure out what this sign is, you could probably figure out when, or possibly figure out when Jesus is returning. So when you see the sign, you understand what it is, and that Jesus is probably going to come right afterwards.
Okay. Now, I know Zechariah Stitchin did a lot of work on this, and some people feel he did adequate work, and others don't believe what he says. How on do you think Zechariah Stitchin was as far as information on this Planet X?
I think his analysis of the Babylonian creation epic was brilliant and very close to perfect, if not perfect. I've done an analysis of it too, and his understanding of the astronomical belief system of the Babylonians was spot on, and also the Sumerians. And one could argue about the particulars of the interpretation of the Babylonian creation epic, which describes the creation of the solar system and the planets and the various, Earth and its various aspects, such as the moon and the oceans and mountains and things like that. There's two basic schools of thought on that. One, this is just the Babylonians describing the formation of the land around Babylon, or there's what I'm calling the astronomical interpretation, which describes how this actually does describe the formation of the solar system, because in the ancient world, Babylonians and Sumerians particularly, they worship the planets as gods. And so when they're talking about the gods in heaven, they're literally talking about the planets. So any kind of cosmogony or description of the creation of the gods is going to be, by default, a description of the creation of the planets. So the question is not, is this about the creation of the planets? The question is, with so many of these mysteries, are you able to accept that possibility that the ancients had an advanced understanding of how the solar system was formed? And if so, really the only way they could have understood that is if they had been told by some sort of higher beings how things went, so they were basically educated. There's no way men could come up with this on their own. They had to be taught by higher beings who came down from heaven to earth, just as described in the mythologies of all the ancient peoples.
And there's been several references to this Planet X, has there not? I mean, and in different parts of the world, even.
I'm not sure what different parts of the world is possible. I'm mainly looking at the Babylonian and Hebrew accounts and how they parallel. People have noticed that there is very strong parallels between the Babylonian creation epic and the creation material in the Old Testament of the Bible, particularly sections like Psalm 74, which describes the earth as being like a dragon, and God formed heaven and earth from its body. And people, if you interpret Genesis 1 in this context, you can see there's also clear parallels to the New Elish and other parts of the Bible which otherwise make little sense when the Bible, in a couple of different places, in Isaiah, in Job, I think it's Job 9, and like I said, Psalm 74, all have passages which describe the earth as being like a dragon which God conquered in the beginning, creating heaven and earth from its body, just like the New Elish does. So though there may be other traditions, they're mainly the ones I'm aware of, are ones around the ancient Near East. There's parallels in Egyptian mythology. There's parallels in Hittite mythology. Canaanite mythology talks about the battle between Baal and Yam, the sea dragon, and the creation of the earth from its body. It's a common theme in the ancient Near East, but I'm not aware of anything outside of what we understand as the modern Middle East.
Okay. Now, are we talking about an actual planet or a dwarf star? Because now I've heard different. My understanding is that there's a dwarf star and there's planets around it. I mean, like I say, I've heard all different accounts of this. So is this an actual planet that we're talking about?
In my theory, I follow the scientific theory that there is an additional planet out there, which they call Planet X. This is mainstream science. Sitchin picked up on this concept and applied it to the Babylonian mythology. He took it literally, saying the Babylonians literally had a knowledge of Planet X. But my core concept of my Planet X argument comes right out of the scientific community. This Planet X was actually created by astronomers, Christopher Lowell, I think in the late 1800s. When they were looking for a planet beyond Neptune, they coined it Planet X, X simply meaning unknown. Their theory and mine is it is just a planet. It's not a dwarf star. the dwarf star or the brown dwarf or whatever you want to call it, that is called the nemesis theory, which it's basically a brown dwarf which never had enough mass to ignite like our main star in our solar system, the sun. And they believe that it is a companion star that is somewhere in size between Jupiter and the sun, which is orbiting way out somewhere in the Oort cloud and occasionally throws comets towards us, which explains the existence of the comets. My theory is that the comets are actually created from the mantle of Earth when Planet X struck it with one of its satellites, and this explains why there are many different.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say we have had close asteroid passes recently, and comets, that have made the news, and fireballs in the sky. You got to wonder, is it nearby?
Good question. There's all kinds of material inside of our solar system drifting around in various angles. Different kinds of asteroid groups, different comet groups, near-Earth asteroids. There's a huge amount of stuff, not just in the asteroid belt, but really floating throughout our inner solar system. And my theory, the Planet X giant impact theory, explains why these all exist. These are mainly rubble left over from the impact between this satellite of Planet X and the Earth, which created the asteroid belt from some of the leftover detritus from the impact, and then moved Earth into a new orbit closer to the sun. And much of the other near-Earth asteroids, the Aten-class asteroids, the Apollo asteroids, various groups of comets, these all originated from Earth's mantle as a result of this impact, and from as Earth moved to a position closer to the sun, it left a lot of these trailing, as it moved closer. So this explains how all of these different classes of asteroids could exist. The solar system formation mechanism that we have in place now just doesn't account for all this extra stuff. So this is where all this stuff came from. And ironically, the stuff that falls down to Earth probably originated from Earth as a result of this giant impact.
So do you think, you said around every 2,000 years, so would that be to say that it knocked us in the life zone 2,000 years ago? I mean,
this was probably millions of years ago, or at least hundreds of thousands of years. But it comes through every couple of thousand years. I'm thinking 2,000 years. I'm not sure. This is my theory. Sitchin said it was 3,600. Others have said it's more or less. I say 2,000 years mainly because there was a major appearance of a star in the heavens around the time of Abraham, which was around 2000 BC, and also another appearance of a major star in the heavens around 0 AD, which was the Star of Bethlehem. And then another 2,000 years later, we're possibly expecting the return of Christ again, so that would make another 2,000 years. So that's why my theory is that it's 2,000 years. That plus in the Bible it says, a day of the Lord is 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is one day. Put those together, it's 2,000 years. So it matches up pretty well.
All right. Interesting. Very interesting. All right. So, astronomers, we've heard maybe a few have come out, but for the main part, I mean, for I guess mainstream, not the media, but mainstream astronomers, amateur astronomers, how come they're not able to locate this? I mean, I have seen pictures and I've seen videos, but it's hard to tell what people are putting out there. So, I mean, how come? Obviously, NASA's going to lie. Government's not going to tell us the truth. So, how come somebody hasn't come out and said, "Hey, here it is. I found it. This is, I'm with this university or what have you. I'm not lying to you. Here it is." I mean, how come they can't find it?
My theory is like most comets, it's a black body. What's called scientific terms called a black body, which means it's darker than coal. It reflects less than 4% of all light that it hits it. This is my theory is because Jesus himself said, "Behold, I'm like a thief in the night," and the description of his return and the appearance of the star is very sudden, as if out of nowhere. And like a comet, and most people don't understand this, but most comets actually have a thick organic goo on top of them, covering most or all of them, which, until they come close enough to the sun for sublimation to start occurring and patches of ice on their surface to start converting to vapor, which then reflects the sun, that's when we can see them. But before then, they're literally blacker than coal. And without that tail, they would be invisible. My theory is that Planet X is the same way. It's covered with this organic stuff, or perhaps surrounded with a cloud of it, and this explains why it says in the Bible, God hides himself in clouds and thick darkness. That this planet is surrounded by this stuff so that only when it comes close enough to the sun for this sublimation process to occur, where the solar wind hits patches of ice, water, and other types of ice on the surface, or perhaps in orbit, and this forms a comet, a huge comet tail, explaining why in these ancient depictions of the god Marduk in the Babylonian mythology, the symbol of the star is always this kind of comet-like thing with these two wings and a tail. This is in appearance, Planet X is basically a giant comet, which means it's invisible to the naked eye and to really all optical telescopes until it comes close enough for the sublimation process to start occurring. There may be some more advanced telescopes available which could spot it, but such an object would be so hard to find. Even our most advanced stuff will be very hard put to see it, not because it's invisible, but because there's so much else out there that it's hard to pick it out from all the other objects. The IRAS data, for example, back in the 80s, there was so many things to go through. It was just impractical to look for Planet X using an infrared scope. There was trillions of objects out there. How do you figure out which one is which? So that's one way that it's been impossible to see it, because it's invisible effectively until it comes close enough to be seen with the naked eye because of the comet-like tail it has. Otherwise, it's invisible.
Has, in your opinion, or even in your research, has NASA and the government actually been looking for this thing? We know they put a satellite in place, or a telescope in place, to look for brown dwarf stars. But what have they put in place to look for Planet X?
I'm not sure. Probably the outward statements they make, they don't seem to be interested in it, but I suspect they know, some people may know where it is and are beginning to prepare society for it. I don't know for sure, it's just a theory, but if it does exist and if it's approaching us now, it probably would not be something that they would want to be widely broadcast. It would be, if it comes close enough to Earth to be a problem, and it's not certain if it will, it would be something they wouldn't want us to know about because it could cause a panic. And so they would want to be able to probably leak it out bit by bit to prepare people rather than all at once, look, this giant planet's coming towards us, we're all going to die. So if it does exist, and if they probably know about it, if it does, it'll be something that'll be leaked out over a period of time.
How long do you think it would take before we were actually able to see it in our sky? Like we see our moon, and we, how long before it got in view where we'd say, hey, something's not right up there? What is that?
I don't know about the timing in terms of what year or what month, but it does say in the Book of Revelation that I think it's the sixth seal, that men are looking to the heavens and seeing the throne of God, and as a result they're hiding themselves under the mountains and digging down into the earth to hide from the throne. And my theory is that the throne of God, at least symbolically the throne of God, is actually Planet X, which he uses to judge Earth occasionally. And so this is what they're recognizing. Probably in the middle of this tribulation period of 7 years, or maybe 3 years or 4 years in, they actually begin to see this thing distantly coming towards the Earth. Finally, its comet tail appearing. And at that point, they'll have maybe 3 or 4 years at the outside to be prepared for its near flyby. So I'm thinking probably somewhere between, in the middle of this period, if you understand, I'm not sure of your position on the Bible and the Book of Revelation, but probably midway between that tribulation period is when it'll first appear.
Okay. So many people have been obsessed, and believe me, I get emails from people all the time about this Planet X and the wormwood, whatever. It's got so many names. But so many people have been obsessed with this. I mean, they literally have planned their lives for it. I mean, prepping away. And it's good to be ready for whatever might come. But if we're not sure exactly when this thing is coming or when we're going to be able to see it, why does everybody so pinpointed on 2012 being the time and date,
Because there's no other outstanding date in the records. We have no date to reference, so people figure, well, Mayan calendar, why not? Some people just like to worry about things. They like to prepare and have an excuse to prepare. That's just the way they are. So they focus on various dates, or if they don't have a date, they'll make one up based on, Aztec or Mayan or biblical calculations. And this has been happening since forever, so it's nothing new. People just need some people just need an excuse to prepare, and they like living in fear. It's just their nature. I haven't experienced a lot of it in my own personal life, but there's a lot of it online, as you might expect. I don't personally think Planet X is going to come by in 2012. 2012 might be the beginning of the tribulation period. It may not be. It's not clear. So I don't like to I don't like to get involved in dates because I really just don't have any idea of when it's coming, if it's coming at all.
Right. And what I tell people when we have guests on and we talk about this type of thing, what I tell them is my feeling on it is that there is something up there, there's something out there somewhere, and I think there's enough evidence in the past archaeology history of this planet that life has been wiped off before, that catastrophic events have happened. So something caused it. I don't know if it was Planet X. So I tell people to use their own judgment, do their own research, and, don't go packing up and running to the mountains tonight because of what we're saying here tonight, because nobody really knows what's going to happen.
In my opinion, by the time Planet X actually shows up, it'll be the least of our worries. There'll be much more going on and much more reason to be feared than actually Planet X. If my theory is correct, Planet X actually won't appear until civilization as we know it has disappeared and been replaced by something approaching an well-organized barbarism, not unlike Nazi Germany, but possibly worse. So be prepared, be more afraid of wicked people and government and wicked government than of Planet X. I think Planet X may be more of a salvation experience for many rather than a destruction one. Only those who are not prepared spiritually will really need to fear it.
And I'm glad to hear you say that, because that's something else that I try to get across to my listeners is whether you believe Planet X is coming next week or next year or whenever, if you believe or not, it's no reason to give up. And that's what I worry sometimes, is that people are going to say, December 21st, 2012, the world's going to end anyways, why bother? No, we don't want to do that.
You should always pay off your bills and maintain your relationships and live your life normally with reasonable preparation until the time becomes clear that survival preparation is necessary.
Absolutely. Well, Doug, hang on with us. We're going to take a break, and then we'll come back and talk some more. We're going to talk a little more about Planet X, and we're also going to talk a little bit about the Sphinx. And anybody have a question or a comment you want to call in, we'll take your calls in the next hour, 858-683-1309. You got to press 1 so we know you want to get on the air. You can also call in using Skype, and you can do that just by going to the latenightinthe-midlands.com chat room, and Autumn or Anthony or Joey or whoever will direct you on how to do that. It's real easy. There's a link on the website, Blog Talk Radio, and search, and you click on that link, it'll take you right over to the show page, and there's a Skype button there where you can call in. It's right next to the call-in number. But if that's confusing for you, just ask in the chat room. And joining us, we've got Doug Elwell with us tonight. He is our guest, and we're talking about Planet X. We're also going to talk about the Sphinx and some other things. We'll get there. Planet X is something, hey, it's 2012, so why not do a few more shows on this? And, when December 21st, 2012 rolls around, well, get some sleep, because you're going to have a big day, December 22nd, 2012, some of you at least, explaining to everybody why you're still here. But, and who knows, maybe I'll be the one saying, damn, they were right. But somehow I don't think so. I don't think it's that time yet. But some do. 858-683-1309. Press 1 so we know you want to get on the air. We will take your questions, so go ahead and call in. We'd like to have, I guess I could say we even love to have interaction with our listeners, so don't be afraid to call in. We don't bite. 858-683-1309. Just keep it clean. That's all we ask, and respectful, and we won't have any problems. The website, www.latenightinthe-midlands.com. And Glenn Kennedy's website, project.nsearch.com. Make sure you get over there as well. And we're going to get back to it with our guest. And all right, Doug, I wanted to get, before we take our call, we do have somebody on the line here, ancient texts. Some of it indicates that ETs, some would say all of it does, that ETs were involved in many ways in the past. And I was just wondering, what do you think about that? And how much interaction do you think the ETs actually had with civilization here, with us?
I think they've actually been actively involved in mankind since the beginning. I don't believe in ETs per se in the sense of biological entities evolving on other planets and then coming to visit us. I think they were actually what you could call fallen angels that actually came down from a higher dimension and came down to this dimension and came to Earth in order to found and create humans in order to achieve their objectives. I actually think God created mankind, but I think that the fallen angels took some of these men, and modified them so they would be able to use them for their uses. And this is what Cain was, the son of Adam and Eve. Cain was a modified human. Good people call the giants, men of old, men of renown, who were modified to be larger, stronger, smarter, better looking, than the typical man that was created by God originally. And so I think that these beings have always been closely intertwined with human history to the point that it's almost no difference. They kind of are overlords and masters, and people quietly and very skillfully guiding us from behind the scenes using various subtle methods. So, in the sense of these,
do you think?
Good.
Oh, go ahead.
In the sense that I don't believe in aliens per se. I think aliens are simply fallen angels that taken on biological form in order to better interact with the universe, because in order to interact with the universe, you have to have a physical form in order to affect physical objects.
Could it be maybe that this is just one of my little theories, and I'm no professional here, but could it be that maybe thousands of years ago we actually did leave this planet because of technology that was given to us, and that the UFOs and stuff that we see is us coming back? And,
that is possible. If it really depends on how much technology they gave us, and if they allowed us to take off of the Earth. Because if they are our controllers, then they would have ultimately a decision as to how far we could advance scientifically. There seems to be evidence of this in the ancient mythology. In the lid of Palenque in Mexico, that's a depiction of an ancient king who appears to be riding in what looks like a rocket ship. And in the Epic of Gilgamesh, there's a description of some sort of a platform from which deities would rise up into the heavens on a plume of fire. It would indicate that there possibly may have been limited instances of actual space travel in the world before the flood. Maybe part of the reason that mankind was destroyed, because those voyages may have been attempts to attack heaven itself. One of my theories is that the giants were created and descendants of Cain were created to raise an army against God, so that these fallen angels could attempt to retake the throne of heaven, which when they had lost the original war of which they had cast down from heaven to earth, where they keep trying to retake it. And that's what the giants are for, to create a new group of warriors that will help them try to retake this heavenly throne, which may be actually Planet X. That's one of my theories. Another planet in our solar system which God uses as base of operations, and which the fallen angels want to retake control of. And so this is one of my theories.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go take a phone call here. Riscola in Florida. You're on Late Night in the Midlands. Welcome aboard.
Hi, Michael. Thanks for taking the call.
Hi. Thank you.
Hi, Doug.
Hello.
Doug, I wanted to ask you, I see you, I think you wrote a book, something about the Sphinx, right? The Riddle of the Sphinx?
Yes, The Riddle of the Sphinx.
And what basically did that book say?
The theory behind The Riddle of the Sphinx is that there is a hall of records underneath the Sphinx, which contains ancient secrets from before the flood, secrets that are technological in nature. And if someone gets hold of these technological secrets, they'll give them an overwhelming advantage over others that would allow them possibly to conquer the world.
I'm afraid that somebody's already gotten there. Somebody's already beat you in the punch. Yeah.
Has it already been written?
Yeah. No, not that it's already been written. Somebody's already been in that room. Somebody's already gotten it.
It's possible. Huh? It might be that it's already been discovered. My theory is that only the Antichrist himself will be able to find this. It was his destiny to do so, but who knows? Maybe they've already found it.
I believe that it's already been found.
What do you believe they found?
I believe that they found information, the secret of secrets, information regarding the very beginnings of everything, along with information on how to what's that called? Instantly. When you manifest, instant manifestations.
Like a teleportation or a beaming?
Anything it's the secret to, mankind uses 5 to 10% of their brain. This is the secret on how to unlock the rest. You can imagine what we do with what little that we have. Mm-hmm. You can imagine what happens when we unlock the rest.
Interesting.
Okay. So the ability to create something out of nothing, or manifest material objects.
Exactly. Well, it has been scientifically shown that the entire galaxy, our entire universe, is a living consciousness. There's a consciousness within the universe that is alive. As scientists go down to the molecular level and down to the atom, once they pass the atomic level, all they can find is a consciousness. There's a living consciousness in our universe, and that's who we refer to, who I refer to, as God. It is that consciousness that is alive, and it has power. And if you know how to bring its power about, if you are the, let's say, in an analogy, if you are the wire for that electricity, you can take that electricity wherever you want. You can produce whatever you need at that point. And that's what I believe was in that room.
The secret of creation.
Interesting.
Exactly.
That is interesting.
Exactly. I want to make another comment, kind of coincidental to this as well. Regarding the pyramids, now, I don't think Michael and I have spoken a couple times. I don't think Michael knows, but I was born in Cairo, Egypt. And when I was a child, my father took me to see the Sphinx and to see the pyramids. And I was only 3 or 4 years old. And I can tell you, there's not much I can remember of my past, to this day. My past is like bits and pieces. It's not like some people can remember everything. I don't remember that, but I remember this very vividly. This is one of those times where it's burned into your brain. He took me to see this pyramid, and of course I was a little child, so to me it was, oh my God, it was as big as the world as far as I could tell. But when I touched it, that's the thing that I remember. When I touched the pyramid, it was unlike anything I've ever felt before or have since. The closest I can tell you it feels like is kind of sort of like when your foot goes to sleep. You get that eerie kind of tingly feeling? Mm-hmm. That's what it felt like. But it was not really like it was. That's as close as I can get to it. And I would let go of it. Me as a kid, I was playing, and I would touch it, and I would let go, and I would touch it, and I would let go. And every time I would touch it, I would have this. It was a very good feeling. It wasn't a scary feeling. It was a very, very good, deep. It just. I can't describe it. I can't find words to describe it. And I would touch it and let go, and touch it and let go, and I could feel that. And I've been told as children, we are much more open to the spiritual realm. As we grow older, we seem to shut that part of our senses down. And I believe that the pyramids are a form of energy to help people feel good and be good and have good health. That was one of the purposes of the pyramids. I'm trying to give you a opinion on that. What do you think about that?
I'm actually writing another book about the giants, which I alluded to previously, in which I'll be writing about how the Great Pyramid was actually a kind of a degraded copy of a greater pyramid in heaven, from which the fallen angels have been thrown down. So you have in this stone pyramid kind of an echo of heaven itself, and the energy and the positivity, I guess you could say, that they were attempting to recreate on Earth in a way that they could control. So I think you're maybe feeling echoes of heaven in that sense. Even in a broken down form, the pyramid retains this powerful energy at a very subtle but profound level. So I think I believe you. I think you may have felt some records where it was located on the Giza Plateau, and by following the alignments of the air shafts and emanating from the king's and queen's chambers in the inside of the Great Pyramid, 2 from the north and 2 from to the south, they found at 2 points in relatively recent history, 2500 BC and 10,500 BC, these 4 shafts aligned with 4 major stars or constellations in heaven. On the north, you had the Lesser Bear, I think it was Pointing Polaris, and also at the Draco, which was the original pole star thousands of years ago. And in south, you have it pointing at Sirius and Orion's belt. But these alignments only occurred at 2500 BC and 10,500 BC. And so in order to differentiate between those two, when these 2 alignments actually occurred, which one were they actually trying to point to in the construction of the pyramid, they determined that by looking at what zodiac was dominant during that period, because the zodiacal constellations shift place every 2,560 years, I believe it is, in the precession of the equinoxes, they found that in 10,500 BC that Leo was regnant over that age. And so since there was a clear symbol of a lion on this Giza Plateau, the Sphinx, they determined that the Sphinx, the pyramids, had all been built not in 2,500 BC, but in 10,500 BC, because their very construction, the alignments within them, pointed back to that date of their creation. So that's my theory, that it was actually built 10,500 BC originally, and that was the world before the flood, and that probably was advanced technologically, and some of the secrets of that age were hidden underneath the Sphinx in order to protect them from the flood and for the future when there would be a time when someone would arise to find them and reuse them to take control of the world once more.
Right, and like the caller said, there's a good chance that if there's anything valuable and we know about it, then certainly I'm sure some elites have probably already gotten their hands on it, whether it be Egypt or America or the Vatican or somebody probably has already gotten to it, and that's a shame. But boy, would I like to know.
I don't think they have. My theory is that in my book, The Riddle of the Sphinx, I talk about a prophecy in Genesis 49:9, which parallels the Riddle of the Sphinx described in the play Oedipus. And the play Oedipus, the Riddle of the Sphinx was, what is it that walks on 4 feet in the morning, 2 feet during the day, and 3 feet in the evening? Do you know the answer to that riddle?
The Sphinx? I don't know.
It's man. He walks in 4 feet in the morning as a baby, or when they crawl. 2 feet in the afternoon when they're an adult, and 3 feet in the evening when they're of old age when they use a cane. The cane being the third foot. Now, when I was reading the prophecies of Jacob in Genesis 49 about the destinies of the tribes of Israel, I realized that the prophecy of Judah, which is the ancestor of the modern day Jews, was that it was very similar to the riddle of the Sphinx. He described Judah as a young lion, an adult lion that is crouching, and also an old lion. So you have the 3 ages of the Sphinx here, along with the 3 ages of man, a clear parallel to the riddle of the Sphinx. Now, this is actually a prophecy regarding the end times. And it says in Genesis 49:9 that when Judah is an old man, an old lion, I think this is talking about how the Jews would take the land 3 times. Once during the period of the Exodus, second time after they returned from Babylonian and Persian captivity, and third when they'll return in the end times, and right now they're there the third time. My theory is that they, and possibly a Western coalition of forces, because of terrorist activity in Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood and so forth, will be forced to attack and invade and take over Egypt. And then, and only then, will they have the ability to dig underneath the Sphinx and find the ancient secrets therein. And that is the true riddle of the Sphinx, is that in the end times, the descendants of Judah and others will find this secret, and then they will use it to conquer the world.
I see. Well, when people talk about the end times and indicate that it feels like we're in them, I have to agree. Sometimes it does feel that way. And I wouldn't doubt if they know that type of knowledge is hidden beneath the Sphinx, that they wouldn't find a reason to go and take over Egypt just to get them. So it wouldn't even have to be a legitimate threat. They'd make it up, I think. I think that's how evil it's gotten. And these fallen angels, I think they fell right into Washington, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. One reason I think that it's because of an invasion is because it describes an invasion in Daniel 9. It says the forces of the Antichrist will actually sweep throughout the entire Middle East and conquer Egypt and also gain control of the treasures thereof. And so I believe that one of the treasures, it actually says hidden treasures, as in undiscovered treasures, that they will find this treasure, and then that's when they'll become truly invincible. That's why I believe that. It's not just the prophecy of Judah. It's also the prophecy of the Antichrist and the forces of evil in the end times. They will actually, it literally says, and I think it's Daniel 9, they will conquer Egypt and surrounding countries and take control of the hidden treasures of Egypt. I believe that's their primary motivation, is to find this ancient technology.
Mm-hmm. And isn't it said that the Antichrist will come before people as if he is he's Jesus? He'll play the role of Jesus, get everybody trusting him. And
yes. My theory about this technology is that it will make him so powerful he could appear like a divine being. Actually, if you're familiar with Egyptian mythology, you probably have seen various deities wearing this kind of round headdress with the horns on either side. This is called the Eye of Re. And they said this Eye of Re, whoever wore this crown would have godlike powers. My theory is that this was an actual technological device that, when worn, would give the wearer what would appear to be magical powers, which were actually just technological abilities that are so advanced that they appear like magic. And I believe that's what the Antichrist will use to appear to be a deity. Because when he comes out, when he puts this thing on, he'll appear in all aspects to be an Egyptian deity reborn. And I think that's their intention, is to give rebirth to these Egyptian deities and say Jesus was also one of us and so forth. And that's when they'll attempt to use that power to rule the world, not just the technological power, but also the, like you said, the seductive power of this idea of a divine being actually living in our age. I think many people will find that very attractive.
Right, and I was just thinking as we were talking about this, all joking aside, I hope George Bush isn't listening to this broadcast, because he's probably on his way to the Sphinx right now. If he thought for a minute this could make him appear as a god, to the people, he would jump right on it.
Yeah, that's the temptation and why it was hidden. Is that much power? Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Whoever wears this crown will effectively be in charge of the earth.
Wow, it almost sounds like something out of a Hollywood movie. I mean, it really does. You see these movies where, hey, you find these crystal skulls, put them together, and you'll have the power. And I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying it's amazing how close to reality that stuff is.
It's a human psychology and the reality of life. People want power. There are two kinds of people: people who want power and people who have power. There are always people trying to gain control over others and of their own destinies. My theory was, you follow these natural human predilections, cross-reference it with ancient references to these so-called magical powers, references to the Bible, to this Antichrist who's trying to take control of the world. You think, how could he actually do this? And how would he have these powers? It could be a technological answer, and could be it's hidden from an age of mankind where technology was more common, like we have now. It's possible that technology is not something that just exists right now. It may have come in cycles. And from a previous cycle of mankind's technological past, there may be hidden secrets which, if found by the wrong person, could be put to evil use. That's basically what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we've got a short break here. We've got to take quick, Doug. So let's take this break, and we'll come back, talk some more. And, I wonder, maybe we could talk about this for a brief minute when we return. I wonder, they hide all this useful information from us, whether it be technology, maybe it's ancient scriptures that describe, who we are and where we're from and so on and so forth. And you wonder, why did they not try to, maybe even hide things from the Bible, maybe the Bible, under the Sphinx or something like that too? Why do they let us have that, but yet keep us from all the other stuff? Because really, Revelations talks about these very things we're discussing, and you would think that they wouldn't want us to have that knowledge either. So maybe that's something we can kind of get into when we return. I'm Michael Vera. This is Late Night in the Midlands. The number to call in, 858-683-1309. You got to press 1 so we know you want to get on. You can also call in using Skype. You know the drill, and we'll be right back. Is it possible to read a person's thoughts? Okay, we are back, and as I've said in the past, I don't think it's the end of the world. It's the end of the world as we know it, maybe. I mean, let's face it, 2012 been a very interesting year. A lot of people waking up, a lot of the scams being exposed, a lot of the frauds being exposed, a lot of stuff going on here, and I think it's going to get more and more interesting as we move along throughout 2012. But I do not believe it's the end. I really don't. It's good to get prepared. Get yourself extra food, some clean water, drinking water and stuff like that, and store it. Sure, because you never know. It could be an earthquake, tornado, something along them lines that you have to recover from. But I think if something like Planet X comes, I don't care what you packed. Good luck. That's all I could say. I don't think it would matter at that point. 858-683-1309. Press 1 so we know you want to get on. LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Go on over, become a member, be informed, and inform others. And remember, if you can help out by sharing our content, we definitely appreciate that. Hit the like buttons, share buttons, tell other people on other sites about us, and let's get more people involved. And, another way you can help us out is by hitting that donate button on either LateNightInTheMidlands.com or project.inserts.com. That helps a lot, helps fund what we do here. So we can always use the help. We're going to get back to it with our guest, Doug Elwell. And, Doug, before we hit that break, I question as to why, because let's face it, the information in the Bible, there's a lot of useful stuff there. Why did they let us have it?
Regarding the information in the Bible or technology in general?
I guess regarding the information that comes with the Bible. Why did they hide everything else from us? That's why I wonder.
That's actually a very good question. Why even tell us that all of it's so dangerous? I think they wanted us to know about it so we could recognize it when it happens, but they didn't give us enough information to really understand what was going on, so that people with evil motives couldn't use it. They made it purposely vague so it couldn't be used. For example, the Ark of the Covenant. Some people believe, including myself, that it was an advanced form of technology, and really the ultimate form of technology, that was intended to be used specifically as a communications device between God and man, and was used as such by Moses and by the priesthood of Israel to do that. But it could also be misused as a weapon of mass destruction, which some may have actually tried to use as well. In fact, this device I'm talking about that is hidden underneath the Sphinx may be a larger, more powerful version of the same technology used in the Ark of the Covenant. Part of my research indicates that might be what's actually going on. Some people believe that the Ark of the Covenant itself or parts of it were hidden underneath the Sphinx. But I think something else, or maybe it is, but I think there's actually something else that is even more powerful underneath it. Kind of a technology based on the use of sapphire stones. In fact, the stones of the Ark of the Covenant were actually made of sapphire, these testimony stones. And sapphire has some interesting properties, which I get into in my book, The Riddle of the Sphinx. Technologically advanced properties having to do with data storage and actually laser technology. But generally speaking, regarding this information in the Bible, I believe it's necessary, like I said, for us to understand kind of what's going on so we're not totally in the dark. But in the end times, when all things are about to be revealed, people like myself will rise up and try to determine exactly what was going on based on our modern understanding of what we call technology.
Guest is with us, Doug Elwell. As I told you, I've read off the bio, and now he's here to join us. So, Doug, welcome to Late Night in the Midlands.
Hey, great. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. Your website, very interesting stuff. I know you've got The Riddle of the Sphinx. You've also got a book on Planet X. Can you tell us a little bit? Tell us the books you've got, what you've written, and maybe give us a little insight on them.
Well, the two most recent books I've written are called Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age, and The Riddle of the Sphinx. Two separate books written about a year and a half apart. The first one, Planet X, The Sign of the Son of Man and the End of the Age, is about my theory that the star that preceded the birth of Jesus Christ was actually Planet X, and that this same planet will return sometime in our probably near future to herald his second coming, as Jesus prophesied in Matthew 24, I believe it's 17. His second coming would be preceded by a heavenly sign in the heavens. My theory is that they are both the same sign, Planet X, returning in a roughly 2,000-year orbit. The second book, The Riddle of the Sphinx, talks about the hidden secret underneath the Sphinx that some people believe is hidden in a mysterious hall of records. And my theories about what it might be, possibly ancient technology from before the flood, which in the wrong hands could be quite dangerous.
Right. Very interesting. All right. Well, I'd like to talk a little bit about the whole Planet X thing tonight and get into the Sphinx, and and just touching on the technology really quick. Some would say that the elite now have gotten their hands on some of that ancient technology. Some believe it's being used.
Yes, if they may have been searching for it in Iraq. Some people think some ancient technology was buried around there. Others believe that these alien beings are actually the fallen angels who are giving us this technology and kind of reincorporating it into our society, just as they had possibly in the world before the flood. It says in the book of Enoch that the fallen angels came down from heaven to earth and gave man gifts of technology, arts and literature, writing, science, as we understand it, and taught men how to create shields and work metal, shields and armor and swords and work metal and a variety of other what we would call technologies. And the theory based on that is, in some circles, is the world before the flood actually achieved a technological, because of their help from these heavenly beings that came down to earth, had achieved a level of sophistication equal to or possibly greater than our own in modern day. And some people believe the reason we've achieved technology in our time is because these same fallen angels, these aliens or whatever you want to call them, have come down again and started giving us technology again. And this is the reason, one of the major reasons, we are enjoying a technological renaissance, because we've been given help by these spirit beings.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with how some of these ancient civilizations were able to be so accurate with the planets and the events that come in space. You just wonder, I mean, there's been no signs of telescopes and things like that that were ever found, if I'm right about this. So, you would think that information had to have been passed on to them.
It must have been. You can't, for example, Egypt didn't have a period of growth of sophistication of sciences and arts. They just kind of appeared out of nowhere with a complete package of language and writing and mathematics. There was no period of development from primitive math to sophisticated math. They just appeared out of nowhere in the archaeological record. And the same with the Sumerians, as if they have been specifically raised and taught to be a race of beings that had these abilities to serve some sort of a purpose. The theory of some, including myself, is that they're specifically bred and trained to serve these fallen beings as sort of their servants. And these heavenly beings are the gods of these various peoples, like Re and Horus and Osiris, are actually fallen angels that came down and taught them technology to the Egyptians, much of which technology was lost, but some of which may be understood if you properly interpret their mythology as not magic, but technology.
Mm-hmm. Now, getting back to Planet X, tell me a little bit about your motivation for writing the book on Planet X. And, I've talked to several people in the past who have done work on this, and it seems like everybody's pretty close to the same idea, but not everybody believes the same things, as far as where it is, when it was here last, and how often it comes around.
What motivated me was I was curious to see if Jesus was returning. Will it be the sign of his coming in the end of the age, just like it says in Matthew 24. And Jesus actually goes into a long explanation of everything that will happen in order in the tribulation period, which is typically defined by Christians as the last 7 years of this current age prior to Christ's return. And he describes in detail all these events that are parallel exactly with the events described in the book of Revelation. And at the peak of these events, these tribulation events, there appears a sign in the heavens which will precede Jesus' second coming, after which he returns with his angels and does battle with the dragon and his angels, so forth, the fallen angels that gave mankind technology. And so my motivation is I figure if you can figure out what this sign is, you could probably figure out when, or possibly figure out when Jesus is returning, so when you see the sign, you understand what it is, and that Jesus is probably going to come right afterwards.
Okay. Now, I know Zecharia Sitchin did a lot of work on this, and some people feel he did, adequate work, and others don't believe what he says. How on do you think Zecharia Sitchin was as far as information on this Planet X?
I think his analysis of the Babylonian creation epic was brilliant and very close to perfect, if not perfect. I've done an analysis of it, too. And his understanding of the astronomical belief system of the Babylonians was spot on, and also the Sumerians. And one could argue about the particulars of the interpretation of the Babylonian creation epic, which describes the creation of the solar system and the planets and the various, Earth and its various aspects, such as the moon and the oceans and mountains and things like that. There's two basic schools of thought on that. One is just the Babylonians describing the formation of the land around Babylon, or there's what I'm calling the astronomical